good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us in another exciting episode of Coping in Color. This afternoon, I am joined by Carol and Dawn. I'll ask them to introduce themselves in a little bit, but as we get started, I want to make sure that you're all sipping on your favorite beverage as we're about to be having an exciting conversation about mental health, women, how we are coping with our lived experiences. So get settled. You are in for another exciting 45 minutes here at Coping with Kyla, presented by Black Mental Health Canada. So I'm going to ask Carol this question to just get us started with a little bit of your background. I am wondering, what do you feel was um, a sliding door moment? What changed your life to be where you are today? What decision, what experience led you to Carol today?
Thanks for the question, Noreen. So, I've had many experiences that have created the person who I am today, that have made me who I am, but it definitely is one that stands out. And that was the experience that I had working at a top well known hospital. And unfortunately, I had an experience of workplace harassment and violence there, and that changed the trajectory of my life, for the better, I would say. Initially, it would have seemed that it was not for the better. Initially, it was very difficult, and I've had some help to process some of that experience and the things that came from it. But at the end of the day, looking back with hindsight being 2020, I can say that I've changed for the better, and it's led me into the work that I'm doing right now. So I'm thankful for where I am today, and I'm thankful for that experience, as funny as it may sound.
Yeah, it's quite interesting how at the moment it feels like the worst thing that could ever happen to you, but it sets us up for a different path.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we're also joined by Dawn Becker. And funny enough, Carol and Dawn are sisters. So, um, Dawn, having been on the side of Carol while she's going through this, um, what's your experience of being a support, but also sharing a little bit about your own journey as well? What has that been like for you?
Okay, so thanks for having us, Noreen. We appreciate being here and being able to speak about, our lived experience as siblings as well, dealing with the different trials and tribulations that are part of being a family. We all experience ups and downs, and that family knit and that family support is so important to our overall well-being. And just speaking on your latter question, so my experience has been one of being diagnosed with breast cancer. And you know what I've learned through this journey with my sister and with the diagnosis that I had is that, and my sister pointed it out, people are not as open and as supportive to someone who is challenged with a mental health, a diagnosis. They are more supportive to someone who is diagnosed with something like cancer, like I was. And I think that we need to kind of broaden um, our support um, elastic band and stretch ourselves a little bit so that we can learn how to support those in our family and help to understand what they're going through from their lens.
Mhm.
So, it helped me going through what I went through to help her for what she's going through.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I love how you highlighted the difference between physical health and mental health and how we are responding as a community, right? And as much as your experiences can feel different, they have a few things in common, right? And that support piece becomes really important, especially when we talk about mental health. It's invisible to the eye, right?
Yes.
The same way that breast cancer, if you don't know, unless someone has a vasectomy, uh,
Mm,
you actually have no idea, right? So
right.
it's a lot of like, how do you heal in that silence? How do you heal in that space where other people may not necessarily see that you're heading while that's
Absolutely.
happening? Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Good
I
point.
understand that has led you into a lot of community and advocacy.
Yes, it has. It has. There's a quote that really sticks with me that I learned along my journey, and it speaks about um, our silence. I believe the quote goes, um, "Our silence is not protecting us,"
Mm,
and that is such a strong and powerful quote because we may want to hold on to our experiences and hold on to the trauma and hold on to the challenges that we experience, but in keeping it in ourselves, to ourselves, with ourselves, it's not helping us. It's probably doing more damage than good. So
yeah,
I've learned from my personal experience that speaking out, asking for help, sharing what you're going through is the road to recovery. It really is.
yeah. And like you said, you have that quote, and I have a different quote, which really echo the exact same thing, right? Uh, we we can heal by telling our stories because then we challenge the single narrative, right? But also we heal when we share our stories because we recognize the strength and the resiliency that we already have within that.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
my question to you, Carol, is the experience of workplace harassment has kind of led you to shifting into different work. What would you say helped you become resilient, whether it was stemming from your community, from your family? What was that little secret ingredient that allowed you to be the resilient individual you are today?
Well, for me, it was definitely my faith, and it is definitely my faith. And it's my anchor. My faith is my anchor, and it is what has seen me through that experience that we just mentioned, but also every life experience that I would have had before and since that has been challenging. It's my faith that I always have had to hold on to and to steady me, and knowing that this too shall pass, as my late mom used to say, and knowing that everything works together. I believe everything works together for my good because I have that faith. And so I rely heavily on my faith to take me through whatever challenges I might face in life.
Hmm.
That's my secret ingredient, so to speak. Yeah.
Definitely. So, speaking of faith, how do you see faith and mental health supports working together? Can they coexist? How do we make sure that they're actually amplified in a way that doesn't take one off the table for individuals when they're looking for resources?
It, Carol, or
Sorry, Noreen.
Yes,
Are you able to? Oh,
can you hear me okay, Don?
I can hear you
I
just
think
fine. Yes, sure. Um,
we're having
I-
some. I didn't hear the question. If it was for Noreen,
Yes. So I was following up on your thought process, Carol, about your faith being the secret
I
ingredient
did
to
shift it for me, Noreen.
and wondering how you can have faith working in conjunction with seeking support for mental health when individuals need them. How can we have
Mm.
faith and mental health supports without taking one off the table?
I can
I
help
love
out
that.
with the question.
I
Oh,
love
go ahead.
that question. Yeah, I can hear now again. I love that question because oftentimes what I have found in my experience is that um, people will believe that it has to be one or the other, either faith or some mental health supports. And what I have found in my life is that there is a place for both, and there should be a place for both. It's important to have a faith for me. It's important for me to utilize my faith, even in mental health situations where my mental health has been challenged. But it's also important, I have found, to seek out help and to get support where it's needed, because as I know, I'm a Christian and I follow the Bible, and for me, I know the Bible says that it's faith and works. That's the key for all of us. It's not just faith. Faith is important, but it's faith and works that make the difference. So the work for me was to seek out the support that I needed in order to overcome the challenge. And I have done that, and I'm so glad. It was a challenge at first for myself, even believing that I needed to seek out support. Initially, I just thought if I pray harder, or if I fast more, or something along those lines, then I will be feeling better. But I found that it's a combination, and faith is protective, definitely, but faith by itself sometimes isn't all that's required. So that's been my experience with faith and mental health support.
Beautiful, beautiful. Dawn, did
And
you
just
have
to
something?
add to that, I feel like, our church body, sometimes they have to do a better job with, not just saying pray about it, but actually
Mhm.
coming alongside us, holding our hand, lifting us up when we fall down, and showing us some tangible and concrete resources to help. Not just pray about it, but as my sister said, the works. We need to see the works as well.
Definitely. Well, thank you for that. I hope our listeners are getting an opportunity to reflect on how you can have your faith be part of your mental health journey, because it's not one or the other, but really having those two work together, because there's times when you need your faith to keep you going, and there's times where you need that support that's going to get you to the next step where your faith is going to carry on, right? And I really like what you mentioned, Dawn. Our church bodies need to do a better job of how do we walk alongside people as they go through these different journeys, right? And
Absolutely.
it's not, if we say we go to church for the community, I think the healing also can take place within that space without saying that.
Absolutely. And not shy away from it, but actually lean into it.
Definitely. Yeah. Wow. So I am getting a sense that there's been a lot of turning your struggles into strengths in a lot of your lived experiences. And so while that's been happening, what are ways in which you have been bringing along other people? How do you support other people into maybe having similar experiences of it's a struggle right now, but this could potentially be a strength for you? Because I see that in the way you have channeled those struggles into initiatives, into the work that you're doing. So, how have you been bringing other people along? Either one of you can take it.
I would say, one thing that would definitely be a recommendation is for us and the support systems that you have to remove your feelings and replace it with empathy. And that's a big part of any journey that anyone is on is having that empathetic voice and that empathetic ear and taking a non-judgmental approach as well as active listening, so those are key things, I believe is necessary. But above all, I would say in a supportive manner is registering yourself into workshops and trainings and sessions that can actually help someone who's diagnosed with a mental illness.
So difficult for us to do from a cultural standpoint where we're just throwing advice, right?
Mm,
Yes.
the
mm,
right, the empathy does not exist as much. I have an African background. I know you guys are from the Caribbean, but it is echoed throughout in our experiences where when someone is talking, we're ready to be like, did you do this, do that, do that? We don't know how to sit with the uncomfortable as much. We're quick to find those solutions, but at times, as you mentioned, it's about sitting with people in their journey and maybe
Yes.
finding out what we can do to better position ourselves to support, not necessarily be the one that has the answer, right? Because that takes a lot of work for ourselves as well. So, Carol,
Yes,
you
it
do
does.
work around trauma. How are we doing as a community when it comes to, well, healing our trauma, but also recognizing when trauma has evolved or when trauma has become part of the culture?
yeah, and that's a great question. As a community, I think that we're doing better than we were in the past in terms of healing our trauma, but I think we still have a long way to go in healing our trauma. And first, it starts with awareness that we are carrying trauma and that
Mm,
we have experienced trauma. A lot of times it's been the trauma that we've experienced has been normalized. And so it's as and the other aspect of it is that the community unfortunately uh, feels that we shouldn't talk about our trauma many times, and that creates a cultural barrier to help seeking and the healing process that we know that is necessary for all of us. We have lived through many oppressions, and with the oppression, obviously trauma is part of that. And so although we're doing better as a community, we still have a ways to go. And I so
Keep.
yeah, so yeah, we're doing better, but there's still a ways to go, I think, for our community on a whole. And that's part of the work that I'm doing, is just to bring awareness at first of all to the fact that we need to discuss these things. We need to heal as a community, as individuals as well.
mhm. Thank you for that. And I love how you mentioned that we've normalized some of that trauma and whether we've made it a, this is the double-edged sword of resiliency, right? Where we're like,
Mm,
I used to walk miles and miles to get to school, and you are
mm,
supposed to struggle, right?
mm,
And that
mm,
part of the, we continue to carry that on to the next generation, right?
Yes.
And when we
Yes.
are doing the healing, is saying it's okay for you not to have the exact same struggle, but I
mm,
recognize how that could still be impacting you on your at a epigenetic level, right? Because this is embedded
mhm,
in us, right? And so when we talk about how your siblings, as much as some of the experiences may be different, some of that gets carried on, and but it gets presented differently, right?
Yeah.
So one
Yes.
person might have it somaticized and have like a physical illness. Someone else might have a mental illness instead. So as a community, we need to be aware of how mental health is going to manifest differently for every individual
Absolutely.
child.
Absolutely. And for me, working in the healthcare sector. I've worked with the young, the old, and pretty much everyone in between, not to mention raising three children of my own. I think just being a mother, not to mention a single mother, brings mental health challenges all on its own. It's not light work. It's really not. But it's important to ask for help, as we continue to stress on this podcast today. It definitely takes a village to hold you up and support you through the trials, and that's something honestly I never did in the journey that I went on with the diagnosis, the breast cancer diagnosis. I didn't really let people in, and I didn't let people know what I was dealing with. I only told a selected group of people, but in hindsight, I did myself a disservice, by trying to hide it. And that's kind of our culture, right? Keep your business to yourself. And this is why I have started to share my experience, and why I advocate for women who feel silenced by crippling fear or the stigma attached to a diagnosis. Unless you ask for help, you won't know about the resources that are available. So, I just strongly recommend sharing and opening up, whatever you're struggling with.
Yeah. And as you're sharing, it came to me that whole, you have to be a strong Black woman, right? You have to be a
Mm,
strong Black mother. And it's those narratives that continue to hold us in those positions where we don't let other people in, but also we don't allow ourselves to put the load down, because we can't keep carrying it every single day, right? Therefore, we will not function very well, right? It leads
that's
into
right.
all of the other experiences as well. Yeah. Um, you mentioned not letting people in when it came to sharing what you were going through. And now that you're on the other side of it, you're recognizing how that was a disservice to yourself. What would you have wanted to do? How would you have wanted to cope better with having your village, your community supporting you?
I would have wanted more hands-on support. To be honest, when I went through my diagnosis, we as a family were still grieving the loss of my mother. And that took a toll on the entire family. So the supports that I received from the family unit was a little difficult, and I understood that. I was in a place where I was struggling and I needed support, and I understood as well from my family's perspective that we're all still grieving. So I think that's why it also made it a little more difficult for me during my battle, is that I really wanted to rely on my family, but they didn't at the time have the capacity. And so I just really just kept to myself. And what I would do differently, I would definitely seek out supports. I would definitely speak to someone. And I highly recommend, therapists, counselors. I'm a huge advocate of seeking that kind of mental health support through any journey that you're going through, because there's so much power in speaking. Our voices can lift and it can pull down, and we have to be aware of as well the environments and the people that we have in our circle, because there's something I say, and I coined this phrase. I say that those in our circle are not necessarily in our corner.
Mm,
So that's something that's huge that I have to realize as I went through each and every journey. I've had 3 miscarriages. I've, lost both my mother and father to cancer. I myself was diagnosed with breast cancer, and as well, my sister experiencing her mental health challenges as well. So it, it's it's a journey, and yes, it's definitely a need for support along the way. And what made me actually start speaking out about my journey was one day I was listening to a Joel Osteen
Mm-hmm.
sermon,
Mm.
and he said something that sparked me. He said, what we go through is our healing journey is not necessarily just for us,
Mm.
but it's for others. So it's for our blessing to bless someone else.
Mm.
So when I heard that, it was like a light bulb went off in my head. I'm like, ding! That's what I'm supposed to be doing, And this was, of course, after my treatment, and after I completed all of the regimen that I had, and I was down and out, and I was feeling quite depressed. I'm like, okay, what now? And when I heard this sermon, it sparked and ignited something in me that I've never felt before. And
Mm.
from that moment on, I've just been speaking and using my voice and using my journey to inspire and to motivate and to encourage others who are in that journey or have been through that journey or is about to enter that journey.
Mm-hmm. Well, and another great example of how faith and supports can actually coexist, right?
Absolutely.
Right. And it comes to really highlight two things for me. The first one being, yes, it takes a village to raise a child, but also not everyone in the village is necessarily going to be part of that journey. And we need to
Absolutely.
recognize what those supports look like, right? I love Oprah's thought process of when people show you who they are the first time, believe them, because that does create that opportunity to say, why do I keep looking for this support from this person when they clearly cannot provide it, right?
That's right.
So that's step one. But also, my journey is not mine, right?
Mm,
In sharing all of the experiences that you have, you've just opened up an opportunity for someone to say, I don't have to feel the shame of experiencing miscarriages because that's not a me thing. It's not necessarily something I did, which I think culturally we have put that a lot of that shame on people to say this is
yes.
something that you should keep aside, because also we're saying having babies is easy and it should just happen, and it just happens every other day, and if you can't, there's something wrong with you, not
Absolutely.
necessarily acknowledging the dynamics that exist with all of that, right? So thank you so much for sharing that.
You're
um,
welcome.
we are transparent here at Black Mental Health. Our other guest is having a few technical difficulties, so we're not just leaving her out here, but we're trying to get that sorted out as we continue to have our conversation. So, John, how has your experience of migrating to a new country either played into how you reach out for support or challenge some of those ideas that you've had?
hmm Thank you for that question. Well, although I was only about 3 years old when my parents brought us, from Barbados to Canada, I'm very proud Bajan. Whether it was 3 years or not, I'm very proud to say that I'm a Bajan, and I think just being, resilient comes in many shapes. To be honest with you, there's lots of and there's flows. And what I mean by that is, you can feel resilient 1 minute and then depleted the next. And with something that I've struggled with my breast cancer journey, it taught me that that's okay. It's absolutely okay, and the important thing is when you fall to get back up. We have to get back up, and if anything, my breast cancer journey taught me to get back up, because I felt down so many times. There's times I had to crawl to the washroom, that I had no strength and no energy in me to even, walk. So I think it's so important for us to understand and hone into a source of energy. And that source of energy for me, like my sister spoke of earlier, is and was God at that time and now. So I don't think if I had gone through that dark period of my life that I would be where I am in my faith walk. Going through what I went through allowed me that quietness and that stillness to to do some retrospection and to look within and to find the strength within, because like I said, my support systems and the resources that I had was very limited at the time. So I had to dig deep and find out, how can I get through this through my own strength? But of course, it wasn't my own strength that got me through it. It was the strength of God, and I learned that through that dark time of my life is my reliance and my need for God is more than my reliance and my need for the world, So it brought me to a new place in my life. It brought me to a new mindset. It developed an inner strength in me, a strength that I can rely on if I fall down. That a lot of times we have a tendency, and it's fine, to look for others to kind of pick us up. And we do need that, like we spoke about, we need the village, but we also need ourselves. And we need ourselves to be the best version of ourselves that we can possibly be. And that comes from work, as my sister said, working from within. So on the outside, we can move forward in a healthy way.
Amazing. I will say this just in case someone missed it or they were like taking something at the same time. But the idea of the stillness and the quiet of being within ourselves and listening to ourselves. And I really like that because we live in a world where we're constantly doing, to a point where we do not even know how to sit in that silence. We do not know what to do with that stillness. And to a
Yes.
point, this hinders our natural healing processes that take place within ourselves because we're just constantly doing and not sitting, right? And this
Yes.
is where prayer kind of plays into that, right? Because sometimes
Hmm.
it's reflective, sometimes you're sitting back, and most times it does require you to be in that meditative space, right? And instead
Yes.
of simply doing, sometimes we just need to be still because that's how we take care of ourselves. That's how we become better. And to echo the copying, right? Those are the better versions of ourselves that come out from those spaces instead of simply
Absolutely.
reacting to everything that's happening around us.
Absolutely. Well
Yeah.
said. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as we continue to try and get Carol back in, you mentioned some of the experiences of raising children. How was that journey for you? And did it happen at the same time as the battle with breast cancer, or was that coming to a bit of the tail end of it?
Uh, I didn't hear the full question, but I think you're asking me about raising children and the breast cancer journey that I was on. How
Yes.
did that play into? Well, wow, it was a battle. It really was, because a lot of times the female or the mother or the grandmother is the matriarch of the family, and when she's down, a lot of things go undone. So I really wish I had an answer for you how I did it. Sometimes you go through things
Mm-hmm.
and you get through it and you look back and you ask yourself, wow, How did I do that?
Mm-hmm.
But, again, by the grace of God, He took me through every day, every step, every moment. He gave me a little bit at a time to get me through that one day. And that is really what essentially it is. One day at a time is how we have to approach life. I, I looked at one moment that I had with my son. He was my youngest son. He was 11 at the time, I believe, when I went through that journey. And what I had to do is I had to incorporate tutoring. I sought out a tutor to help him with his schoolwork and to, come alongside him with the educational piece, because I couldn't be there physically as much and as well as I have been for him. And that was a difficult time, because obviously, financially, you have, at that time you had to pay, for the tutoring. Now there's a lot of resources available for free tutoring for children. But that was something that, came out of pocket. And obviously, with a diagnosis such as cancer, there are financial burdens that come along with that, right? So again, there's so many great resources now, and I'm so happy to see the resources that are available for everyone, even mental health, physical struggles. There's so many resources available. So that's the good point and the happy story out of that.
Mm-hmm. And it's to continue seeking different supports that you need, right? Because sometimes they come in the
Absolutely.
form of, I cannot do the cooking and the cleaning. If somebody else can take over that, let's normalize doing that, right? Let's normalize
Yes.
saying, I'll get a tutor for my kids because we can't do it all. There's only 24 hours. I would switch that question a little bit and ask Carol, what do you think gone through her journey as a mother and also battling breast cancer at the same time? From a different perspective, what did you see? What did you observe?
So I observed a incredible woman going through a very difficult time and having very little, a very small support network.
Um, Noreen.
Yeah, I think I lost it too.
Okay.
Mhm.
Can you hear us, Carol? Okay, that's all right.
Yeah. Well, I am sure she had great and beautiful things to say. What I wanted to highlight with that is oftentimes when we're going through our journey, as you echoed, we think it's our own, but there's other people that are part of it and they get to see different versions of it. So, again, it's really important to not look at things from your own experience and perspective, but also see have other people share some of the things that they're seeing taking place for you, because that could be just those words that you needed to hear. That could be that opportunity for you to say, I didn't realize I'm actually doing that, or I'm actually carrying this in the way that you see it, right? Because that could highlight two things: the strengths, but also highlight the spaces in which maybe we need to ask for a little bit more help in different areas.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
That
it's funny because, oh, sorry about that, Noreen.
go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to speak about the stats as well. I understand that in any given year, 1 in 5 Canadians will suffer from mental health problems. And for people living with cancer in specific and their families, the risk is significantly higher. You know, Cancer treatments such as surgery, radiation, and chemotherapy also take a toll on the mental well being of those individuals. as well. Major depression affects about 16% of people with cancer, and almost half the patients with cancer who are receiving palliative care. It's higher, when you know that you're at your end of life stage. So people can experience significant distress at any stage of cancer, and I'm a testament to that. I really did suffer physically, emotionally, mentally during that time. So it's important for us to recognize that mental health affects everyone,
Mm. Yeah.
everyone.
And especially when you're already experiencing a chronic stress within your life, right? So that's going to
Yes,
have
yes,
an impact. So
yes.
we're past the halfway mark, but we're going to take a quick break here, and then we're going to hopefully sort out some technical issues, and we'll see you in a little bit, in a minute. So stay with us as we continue on in coping with color. Welcome back. Thank you both for sharing your experiences thus far. I'm just going to switch gears a little bit and talk about some future aspirations and things that are coming up for you guys. Um, I was ready to start with Carol, but okay. Dawn, looking forward, what are your goals in continuing to advocate for mental health awareness? Are there specific challenges or areas you hope to address in the future?
Yes, in all honesty, I want to speak to the challenges that come from supporting someone with
Mm,
a mental health challenge. I have been privy to, seeing the struggles, that my sister has been through. And she spoke about the workplace harassment and what led to her having a mental health crisis, really. And I would love to see more supports in the way of tangibles, and I keep stressing the tangibles. So for example, I would love to see like a mobile advocacy service, for example. I have found that with our healthcare system, it doesn't always leave room for family members to support someone's
mm,
experience with mental health, in a way that we know that's best for our loved ones. So that's been the
mm,
huge challenge that I've experienced personally with supporting my sister through her mental health challenges. So, what we are as family members are the experts when it comes to our loved ones' needs, right? So we should
uh-huh,
have a say, and we should be able to advocate in a way that supports them in the best way possible.
mm,
So having trained advocates who can physically support families at the hospitals where families are crying out for help, that's something I would absolutely love to see, and I would love to be a part of anything that is, even in the works, or someone who can come alongside both my sister and I, who can start something like that. So I would really love to see that happen. Maybe there are support systems along that line, but to be honest, I felt very alone and very stranded when it came to supporting my sister through her mental health crisis. I felt lost, you know. But since then, I have taken it upon myself to find resources that will help me learn how to support her. So I've registered for a community workshops. I've registered for a program called NAMI. It's a organization that stands for National Alliance on Mental Health, and they are a family to family program. And I have learned so much in that program. I believe every family member should take the time to educate themselves on whatever illness has affected their loved one, be it cancer, be it bipolar, be it schizophrenia. Make the time to equip yourselves with the right tools so that you can better support those around you. That's really essentially what I would love to see, in the future. And as well, in the horizon, I would also like to lend my, support to women who have fled domestic violence and intimate partner abuse. I would love to lend my services to assist in that capacity as well, because there's also mental trauma. There's a lot of trauma that goes on with experiencing that. So that is an area that I'd like to see progress as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I think what really stands out for me is going back to the stats. If 1 in 5 Canadians are going to experience a mental health illness at some point in their lives, that means we're all going to be impacted by it, right? So
Yes,
let's stop thinking of mental health as an afterthought, but something that is very much part of our day to day lives in different ways, right? In the same way that
absolutely.
we have those parenting courses, or we have like the mommy and me courses, or before you give birth, right? How about we have mental health courses of how to take care of yourself, but also to support other people in the same manner? Because there is no way that we're going to go through this life without being impacted by it in one way or another, right? It's very much
Yes,
part of our life. And I love what you
yes,
echoed about. We don't necessarily have to go to therapy. Therapy is great. As a therapist, please do go to therapy. We all need therapy, but I also think we need to lean into our natural resources, the ones that have always been there, which, as you echoed, is that family. It is how do we equip families to better support themselves. I always have this image of a commercial that used to play way back in the day of eggs on a table, like a crate of eggs. When you put like six textbooks on them, the weight of the textbook could crush one egg. But because
wow,
there's a few of them, they can hold that weight and actually not even get crushed, right? And
wow,
that is what echoes for me when you talk about when we have the resources as families, we're able to deal with whatever stresses that come in. We're able to hold them in really great and creative ways because we already have those resources, right? And we know how
absolutely,
we heal better as a family. We know what we need. We are the experts of the people that we love and the people that we're taking care of because we see them every day. We see them at different
absolutely,
right? We see them in different lives, in different experiences, so we get to have a better understanding of them as
absolutely, absolutely. And
well.
speaking in stats as well, I believe there's 38.3% of Black Canadian residents with poor or fair or reported fair mental health use mental health services, compared to 50.8% of white Canadians who've used mental health, resources. And I believe Stats Canada had a report out in 2018 when they surveyed 328 Black Canadians. 60% of them said that they would be more willing to use mental health services in a mental health profession if the mental health professional was Black.
Mm-hmm.
So representation is huge. And I think that we all want to see more, Black therapists and Black healthcare providers, where, it would help us gain a sense of trust as well. There's a lot of mistrust. And I know for a lot of the Black community, that's a huge thing. And that's a huge deal, whether we seek help or not. And so, it's important. Representation is key.
Mm-hmm. And it's that approach of for us, by us, right? So there's already an understanding of some of those lived experiences, because the re-traumatization tends to take place when people seek out support and they're not validated or they're not heard. And then they
Absolutely.
stop seeking out support, which is now what we want. We want people reaching out, utilizing the services, including Carol, who has a great space, which is Ebony Holistic Healing. Can you say a little bit more about it, Dawn?
So, Ebony is an Afrocentric wholeness, everything from head to toe that you can think of. It's a healing journey that my sister takes you on, coming from her lived experience with mental health. She is able to just hone in on the needs of the community and the needs of those dealing with a mental health challenge. So her approach is, from the inside out, as I spoke to earlier, which is what I do as well. So her healing journey helps you relax from your mind,
Mm.
and with that follows your body, right? So it's all connected. So she uses a holistic approach to healing.
Mm. And I love
Yeah.
the piece about being grounded in Afrocentric ways of healing, but also
Yes.
to eliminate the exhaustion that comes
Ah,
with whenever one is seeking out support, right? You already come with this, what now? What else am I going to go through, right? It's like that take down the load really becomes important for me.
it's huge. Yes, it's
Yeah.
absolutely huge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so check out Ebony Holistic Wellness. Just a Google search will get you there. There are courses, there are opportunities to do some one on one coaching. And as Dawn noted, it's not just mental health, it's physical health, taking care of your body, and really seeing you as an individual, right? So, um,
Absolutely.
the principles of Ubuntu, which come from Southern Africa, and that's my people, uh, really resonate with me, right? And it is, we are because of you, we are because of others, right? And we don't stand alone. We continue to uh, journey on this life because there's other people that we stand on their shoulders and we learn, right? From having a conversation with you today, Dawn, I've been able to not only remove some of that shame by saying we can talk about different things, but it is okay to ask for help. And it doesn't matter what you're going through because you are not the problem. The problem is the problem.
Yeah,
You are someone
exactly.
going through a journey for that particular time. So,
Exactly. And if I can add to that, um, I want to say that we should not compare our beginning to someone else's finish.
mm-hmm,
That is such a huge thing that we as humans, tend to do. And we use social media and all of these social outlets to draw comparison to ourselves. And really, comparison is the thief of our joy. So
Mm,
we have to remove that from our daily routines, comparing ourselves. Even as I'm speaking about, my journey, a lot of times people going through that same type of journey will look at me and being finished my journey, and they're
mm,
starting their journey, and they're comparing. So we need to break away from that, and just focus on the now, see what's ahead of you, and take one step, as I said before. And that one step will lead to another step and another step. We're all searching for answers, and we look to different things and people for those answers. But everything we need, I feel, is within us. It's there. It's probably, down deep, but we can bring it back. We can resurrect it, and we can
mm,
heal the things that need to heal. And for me, tapping into scripture and strengthening my relationship with Jesus Christ is the essence of who I am, or who I have been able to rise to. I'm not where I want to be by any stretch of the word, but I'm surely not where I was a year ago. So growth is really having grace, and grace is how we grow as individuals. So I use a phrase and I say, I'm under construction. I am, because there's still a ways to go and there's still growth to be had, but
mm.
I'm working on it. I'm working
Yeah.
on it.
You made me think of a song by Brandy. I'm a work in progress. I think the title of the song is like Camouflage, but she has a line in there that says, I'm a work in progress. I'm
Yes.
a train still on its way to the next station. So don't judge me on now, but also don't judge me
Absolutely.
necessarily on the past either. Allow me the
Exactly.
space to grow and be. And I love the trauma Olympics need to go out the window, right? We
Yes.
don't have to
Absolutely.
like be comparing ourselves or our struggles in order for us to get somewhere. All of our struggles are
Yes.
valid. All of our struggles have opportunity to be around and to be in place. But as you do the work that you're doing, you realize that it's the internal work that gets you to the next step. It's not saying, well, someone else did it this way, I'm going to copy and paste, because there's a lot of missing information. So don't copy and paste. Allow your journey to be yours. And when someone else, as my niece says, when I compare her, she's like, that's them and good for them. It has nothing to do with me, right? And I'm like, you were
Absolutely.
16. How are you
I
telling me
know.
right?
So wise beyond her years.
Exactly. And I'm always taken back when she says that, but I really value it. And with
Yes.
that, thank you for being with us this afternoon as we continue to cope in color by hearing different experiences and stories. And I'm Noreen with Black Mental Health, and we'll catch you guys next time.